Hey folks, how's it going? I'm going to show you how you could possibly win at the Road to the Roses contest, which is beginning this week. I'm going to give you free info from the grid. Let's get right into it. What is Road to the Roses? Well, you're picking horses each week that are running Kentucky Derby prep races, but you got to get your initial stable now because the races are starting this weekend, February 25th. Stage 1 ends March 19th, and then the supplemental draft begins where you're going to be able to acquire 3 more horses. I'm going to show you why that's so important in a minute. But we're going to focus on the horses that are running prep races from now until the end of the supplemental draft. And we're going to try to win that Stage 1 race and possibly more. Now here's what's happened so far, and just a little bit of history this year. This is pretty much the major and semi-major Kentucky Derby prep races so far. You might see a horse like Alpha. I highlighted the horses that have won or placed in multiple of these prep races. If you see Alpha, you might think, man, he's got to be in my stable. He's dominating in the New York circuit, 2 wins. Well, perhaps that would be true, except number one, the competition in New York in the winter is a little bit questionable. And number two, he's not scheduled to run again, according to his trainer, until the Wood, which is in April, which means we can always pick him up in the supplemental draft. So I'm going to recommend not putting him in your stable now. And Secret Circle, you also see they're appearing a couple times and coming off the Southwest. He may not run again until April either. His trainer Baffert has said nothing about him running in March. So, it's probably wise to just keep them out of your stable for now and then pick them up later once we figure out when they're going to run, if they're going to run in another prep. So here's what's upcoming. The Risen Star and Fountain of Youth this weekend, both grade 2 races. You get more points for a grade 2 than a grade 3. You get more points for a grade 1, but those don't start until the end of March. So we don't have any of those to contend with right now. The contenders are listed in this column right here. This is what I estimate to be the prime contenders in each of these races coming up that we know of right now that are pointing to these races. Here's how many I'm going to recommend putting in the stable. Why? Because you can't take all 16 of these horses. You only have 10 roster spots. So this is what I'm going to recommend the number, and we're going to get to exactly how I arrive at that in just a second. First of all, we're going to take a stab at the Risen Star. And the Risen Star, well, you can see pretty clearly El Padrino has by far the highest performance figure of any of these horses. Now, I'm a little bit skeptical about that performance. Gulfstream Park allowance figure. Everybody, including me, gave him very high figures for this. I'm a little bit skeptical about the variant for that day and race, perhaps, but everybody seems to agree that it was a good race. So, I have to try to trust it for now. So you can see if he runs this race again, nobody else is even close. But before he ran this race, he was in mid-80s, much like many other of these horses here. So, and a lot of them are in a similar situation. They're running their first race as a 3-year-old. They took several months off, and they have the right to improve, and they could, come up with a monster race too. But we have to go with what we know. If we think that's going to happen, it might happen to Optimizer, it might happen to Mr. Bowling, it might happen to Z Dagger, it might happen to Mark Valesky for Larry Jones, or even Shared Property. I mean, there's a half a dozen of these horses could take that next step up and actually beat El Padrino. But we have to go with what we know. It's El Padrino for now, and that's why I'm only taking El Padrino and the Risen Star. The next thing we have to look at is the Gulfstream Park Fountain of Youth handicap. There's 3 primary contenders here. It's pretty clearly dictated by the odds. Pletcher's Algorithms, big triple-digit score in the slop last month at the same track, Gulfstream Park. Union Rags was slated to be the 2-year-old champ, but came up a little bit short against Hansen, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. And then you have Discreet Dancer, also by Pletcher. Now, this horse is a little bit more unproven than the other 2, which is why I'm leaning toward just taking the 2 of them. Of course, Discreet Dancer, like I said before, could have rapidly developed over the last few months, as a developing 3-year-old, and may get the jump on those 2. But given that they are the ones that have proven Union Rags and Algorithms that they can score triple-digit speed figures, I'm going to stick with them for now. So now we got our 1 and our 2 for the Risen Star and Fountain of Youth. Algorithms, Union Rags, and El Padrino. If you're going to go on, this contest does have weekly prizes, rather. So you could go all in and take that Discreet Dancer and that Mr. Bowling and Z Dagger. I'd be surprised if Algorithms didn't and Union Rags didn't run 1 and 2 or 1 and 3, or at worst 2 and 3. Discreet Dancer being probably the only one that could beat him. These other guys, Mr. Bowling and Z Dagger, you can take a chance if you really just want to win that weekly prize. I'm in it for the long haul, though, and I'm going to show you what else, who else we're going to take in just a second. Here's a list of all the Derby, contenders from Pool 1 and where they're supposed to be running in next. We covered the Risen Star and Fountain of Youth and who you got to take from there. And you notice that Pletcher has 3 of them. However, the reason I only want to take 3 of those horses is because we have all these guys to contend with too over the next month running in other preps. For example, Hansen running in the Gotham basically by himself. Like I said, Alpha's probably going to skip the Gotham, is what they said. He has enough money to qualify for the Derby already. He doesn't have to run in the Gotham. He'll run in the Wood. So it looks to me like an easy win for Hansen. Battle Harden and Take Charge Ingy are running the Tampa Bay Derby. Take Charge Ingy, that same Gulfstream Park Allowance variant, his is a little bit more trustworthy because at least he had a 95 going into that race. But you can see if he runs either of those 2 last races, he can easily beat anything Battle Harden has run before. So I think Take Charge Indy gets pretty much an easy victory in the Tampa Bay, and I'm going to take that as well. Then you have the Swale, which is a sprint. I don't know if I'm going to participate. I think Thunder Moccasin is the one to beat here. I think even if he enters, and if ever so lucky enters either way, I think Thunder Moccasin wins that. But Pletcher has been on record as saying that the horse is going to remain just a sprinter. And this is the last sprint prep, the Swale. So that means it's one race wonder, basically, if he does actually enter it, which we don't even know yet. So for that reason, I'm a little bit unsold on that. Mike Harrington has a nice young colt called Empire Way out of Empire Maker, who has a great competitive sire index. He only has a 95 going in, but I'm confident he can improve. He's a closer. He's a late running horse. I think I really like the potential of this horse. I also like Midnight Transfer, who, as you can see, has not run a race of over a mile yet, but I'm interested to see what he can do at that distance. He has Carla Gaines as a trainer. Hard Spun was his sire, who finished second in the Kentucky Derby a few years ago, as did Empire Maker earlier in this century. Out of Bounds, nice performance there last time out by Discreet Cat, who's having a great year as a sire. These next 2, Rousing Sermon and Saber Cat, I'm sorry, I need them to actually break 90 performance figures before I put them on my roster. And then Creative Cause, the other Harrington horse, very good performance last time out, and I have high hopes for this horse going forward. Now, Fed Biz and Liaison are a couple of Baffert entries. Fed Biz obviously lightly raced, and Liaison dumping his rider last out, but he was backing up in the stretch, so I'm kind of leaning away from him right now. Dolahan's going to run in the Palm Beach. It's not even scored by this contest, so don't worry about him. And then Gemologist, another interesting Todd Pletcher training. So that should be running in the Rebel. Now all these horses in San Felipe and Rebel, we don't know exactly which way they're going to run. Mike Harrington may decide that Empire May is going to the Rebel, and then Creative Cause will go to the San Felipe. He's not going to run them in the same race, though, because he wants to win both of them. So then we have some other horses down here. I said we're not going to really worry about horses right now that are not going to run up until the 19th of March. If Currency Swap runs again, that'll be interesting. Sure did flash some speed in sprints last year. I'll have another. Looked good this year. He's scheduled for the Santa Anita Derby in April, so we can add him in the supplemental. We can still add Alpha for the Wood if we need to. And then Secret Circle. If and when Bob Baffert decides to run him in another prep, we can consider putting him on our supplemental draft. So that's why I say let's only take 3 for this first week. And then for next month, for going forward, definitely Hansen. Definitely Take Charge Indy. I think you get two wins there. And then I'm definitely going to take these three: the Harrington couple and Out of Bounds. After that, I'm a little bit iffy. I'm leaning Midnight Transfer and Gemologist for various reasons that I just described. And then, but this Thunder Moccasin, I really want to see what he's capable of. If he's only going to run at sprint, that kind of dissuades me. So those are the other options as far as that's concerned. Now, down the road, I also mentioned the other horses running. Keep these on your radar. You have 5 more supplemental picks total, 3 coming up on starting the 19th of March. So you could easily add 3 of these horses, depending on where they're going to run next. And then if there's some more surprise horses down the road, you can add them in the next supplemental draft. Now, last thing that we need to do is pick our trainers and jockeys. We can have 2 trainers and 2 jockeys. And unlike the horses that score from win, place, or show, we only get points from these if they win. Now, it doesn't make any sense to not take Pletcher and Castellano. Castellano is Pletcher's preferred jockey for his top mounts. JR is now Pletcher's second in command, but he doesn't get the great mounts that Castellano gets. Pletcher's barn is stacked, and therefore so is Castellano. So I think you have to take both of those two if you're really serious about winning this contest. After that, it's not quite as clear. Baffert has the most mounts, as well as Rosario. So it kind of makes sense just to take those two. I also like Mike Harrington for reasons previously described. I like both of his horses. And Bejarano, has all of Baffert's top mounts, pretty much. So, he's interesting, as well as Calvin Burrell. He's on Take Charge Indy in that Tampa Bay Derby. So you could get a win there, and possibly more in the Kentucky Derby. So he's interesting. I think it makes the most sense to take the top 2. If you're going to go, I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket, though. So if you don't take him, if you want to reach for Harrington, then don't take Rosario, because Rosario has most of his fortune locked up in Harrington's 2 mounts. And the same thing with Baffert and Bejarano. If you're going to take Bejarano, then you wouldn't want Baffert, because it's pretty much taking the same thing. I think that's too many eggs in one basket. Goes for a little bit of diversity, and I recommend just taking the top 2. I think that makes the most sense. So that's how you're going to win your Road to the Roses contest, or at least hopefully win a weekly prize or a stage 1 prize, or at least do well and have a lot of fun from now until the first Saturday in May. That's all I got for today, folks. Go online to get all the materials and get another look at these things. I'll see you next time.